It's starting to record. Hello, everyone. Um, I would like to invite you to a conversation and an interview with Fran Booth, who is an IFS therapist and assistant IFS trainer at the IFS Institute here in the United States. And Fran graciously agreed to talk to me about her experiences with IFS and answer some of the questions. So, and my name is Irina Dyankova. I'm an IFS therapist, Russian-speaking therapist based in the United States. So thank you so much, Fran, for coming in. And can we start with maybe you telling us a little bit about yourself as an IFS therapist, as an IFS trainer, kind of about your journey with IFS?
Great, right. So hello and welcome. It's exciting to be here. Thank you, Irina, for inviting me. And it's fun to say hello to colleagues in Russia. So I'm
Yeah.
here with you. Um, so I am a clinical social worker. I trained here in the U.S., went to Cornell University and Simmons College for my master's degree, and have been practicing as a clinical social worker for over 40 years. And I was psychodynamically trained. That was what was the model.
Mhm.
And I would say to you, but I was always sort of interested in what else and what other ways that I could learn to help clients, or, was always searching over the whole course of those 30 plus years. I've been doing IFS since about 2004. It was when I first got introduced, and I had my level 1 in 2005. So,
Mhm.
and that whole piece was kind of interesting. I had been doing my own internal personal work, and I had gone to a yoga center here in the US, Kripalu, which is now
Yeah.
Disco's there.
Uh-huh.
Did an intensive retreat with someone there. And she was practicing, when she was a senior yoga teacher there, she was practicing something she called wave work.
Uh-huh.
And wave work is really a body based mindfulness practice. So you would lie fully clothed on a massage table
Mhm.
and just track body sensations
Mhm.
and minimal coaching. There was someone who was a coach. But the reason I'm telling you the story is that by just tracking the body and
Mhm.
staying with it, at some point I would experience my own internal self energy. Like
Mhm.
I would drop into this sort of radiating, alive, pulsing energy. And it was very different than what I was practicing in my psychoanalytic psychotherapy practice.
Yeah.
And I knew, because I, like many people, have very strong thinking parts.
Mhm.
And to be in a modality where you didn't tell the story, your thinking parts had to relax, and
Mhm.
yet still experience this deep reservoir of self energy. I, I think I came to IFS and it was like, I know it's possible because I've had
Mhm.
this other experience. But I wonder often, if I had come to IFS and not had that experience, whether I would have had a really hard time getting out of my thinkers.
Yeah.
So the experience, I sort of came to trust that I had something alive inside of me, deeper than my thinking and analyzing parts. And I went looking for a way to bring it into the office. How am I going to bring this in? I'm not going to be having people on a massage table. I was still sitting in my chair. Uh,
Right.
but it let me come to IFS and say, this is what I want. This is the way I can bring that, knowing my own body, knowing that self energy exists, and have a process to help clients find it themselves.
Mhm.
So I always came with a kind of a passion, uh, that this was the right place for me to be.
That's great. I'm really resonating with you as I'm listening to you about thinking parts. I think that a lot of us therapists have like very strong, thinking parts and storytelling parts and all of that,
Yeah.
you know, and it is like, I think that that's difficult. It's been difficult for my parts, to relax back and allow me to learn the model more from my heart,
Yeah.
rather than from like this from my head, like what is the theory and what are the steps and all of that.
Right, right.
And yet the strength of the model is really about, experiencing self-energy and allowing it to shine and lead.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, makes sense. Well, I just wanted to ask you, since, you have been training for, a while now, can you tell us maybe what it has been like for you, being a trainer, and maybe like where have you trained and what kinds of trainings, you did?
Oh, oh, it's so fun to think about that, knowing I'm, here with a Russian audience, because
Yeah.
I've started to do a little bit of training internationally. And my first trip was to Vietnam,
Hmm.
and we were bringing the trauma training there. So I was traveling with Frank Anderson, and there we had people from China, Japan, Australia, England, Korea. Nobody from Russia.
Yeah.
And but when I was going, I was like, what are the cultural biases? Is there some Western bias that we're going to
Mhm.
bump into that maybe we're not aware of? How is the model going to translate
Mhm.
to these different cultures?
Yeah.
And day one, demo one, to have someone sit in the seat in the room, hold space for this unfolding, that the model, parts are parts, and if you just be with the parts and love them up and help them unblend,
Mhm.
at some point there's this universal self energy that's global,
Yeah.
and the model is translated.
Mhm.
So it was a powerful experience for me, in all kind of another layer of just stepping into this model has something for all of us.
Yeah. Wow, that does sound powerful. Yeah, because definitely those cultures that you are describing, they're very different
Very different.
from the US, yeah, and from any kind of Western, way of thinking. Yeah. I'm curious about like those experiences in Vietnam, Sometimes I'm wondering if like the structure of the psyche is the same, right? We all have parts, we all have self. I'm just wondering if there are like different types of parts, maybe, that some of the parts are culturally determined. Because suppose like, you
I
know,
mean, there's legacy burdens. That's where we would
Mhm.
see
Yeah.
cultural legacy burdens that
Hmm.
were showing up.
Hmm.
The person who was the second girl in the one child only China family, and
Yeah.
the family chose to have that child, and then how that impacted her. Those
Hmm.
kinds of, cultural burdens. But
Hmm.
there wasn't,
Hmm.
anything particular more than understanding
Hmm.
that I saw that week.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just understand the messages that parts have received and how it's impacted them.
Right. So the work is still the same.
Work
Like,
was the same.
work is the same. It's just that
We
maybe
showed up
content.
with some variations, yeah. But
Yeah.
that happens everywhere. I feel like that happens here too.
Hmm.
Everyone has their own, little personality, little idio way. Their system is unique to themselves.
Right.
And that's part of just learning. That's part of the fun and what's creative about it, and what gets to feel new with every client, that there's always something that's their own unique adaptation to what their own circumstances were. But the essential global, if you step back, the kind of big picture frame, the models works, and then
Hmm.
there's all the little intricacies that might be different.
Right. Right. Okay. So, since we're talking about training, um, you know, I don't know if you're aware. I think you are. I think I told you that like there was first level one that was completed in Russia in December. And so there are, 28 newly trained level one IFS therapists in Russia. And there are many more people that are really excited about model, wanting to learn it, trying to go to different workshops and stuff like that. So like what would you suggest? Maybe do you have any recommendations for people who are just getting into the model, and just getting trained or just, trying to apply it.
I mean, I hope this is possible, but I think the number one thing that someone who's learning the model is to be in your own IFS therapy.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, learning your own system and all your own parts, loving them,
Mm-hmm.
but being able to identify when you might be in a part and being able to unblend it. That's the skill for the therapist in the office to get to be able to do that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all need help doing that we don't see what we don't see in ourselves. And having someone, see us and be with someone in it helps with really becoming a skilled IFS therapist. I think it's a really important piece.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you feel like, in IFS, it's even more important than maybe in some other approaches? Like when you're getting trained as a therapist?
I mean,
You know,
I think certainly I was trained psychodynamically, and they've always emphasized the importance of
thank
that.
you. Yeah.
I do think there's other models that have emerged in the last 30 years that maybe haven't emphasized this as much. That
Mm-hmm.
that if you know the protocols,
Mm-hmm.
that you can do the work. And that's the risk, because IFS, the way we teach it, is like teaching protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Although obviously we do emphasize therapist parts quite a bit, but it's way more, the protocols have to sit in the relationship, the
Mm-hmm.
therapeutic relationship, and what's happening this way. The protocols sit within that. And that's where what's happening over here really matters. Since the more I know this, the more I know my own parts and have healed any wounds, then the more present I can be in every moment to my client.
Right, right. And the more present, as you are saying, so the more I can really stay central and not kind of let my parts, color or, interfere
Yeah.
with what is happening between me and my client.
And subtle ones, the ones that are just trying to be supportive or caring. I mean,
Right.
those were traditionally seen as good therapist parts.
Mm-hmm.
And often in IFS, we're trying to unblend those, and those can be more subtle.
Right, right. Oh, I'm right there with you. And I think that we all have them because this is how traditional training goes, right? In like graduate school and so forth, our parts are learning. So like we all have these professional parts that have tons of knowledge and skills and
Right.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
And we
Yeah.
value them. And we thought that was what was important. And I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be helpful. Aren't I
Yeah.
supposed to be helpful?
Right,
There's
right,
a different way of helping. In some ways, a different way of helping.
right. Yes, yes, exactly. So can you say like maybe more, I know that you talk about this in your trainings because I have heard it, I've been a part of that. Um, about, like we are talking about protocols, but then we are also talking about being flexible, right? And following the client's system. Can you say more about that? Because I think it's a difficult concept, for therapists as they're getting trained in IFS to get, how do you trust the client system? I mean, it's not functioning. Like, how would you trust it? Why would you follow it?
Yes. So, I mean, that's a great question because it is a nuance. What do we really mean by that? And,
Mhm.
I have to fall back on the story I told you a minute ago, which is that to really trust their self energy inside of each of us,
Mhm.
you know, for me, it was easy because I had that experience. And then it was easier then to trust it's in my client too.
Mhm.
Um, but you're also asking, like, how do you know when to follow the protocol and when the client doesn't follow it?
Right. Exactly.
know, Went left. It's
Yeah.
like you thought they were supposed to go right.
Right.
And so I think it's again about understanding that in every new moment, that's just the client's system.
Mhm.
I mean, assuming that you don't have a part that's pushing a kind of like, this is the way it's supposed to be, which can be happening, and trying to relax that. But when you ask a question, how do you feel towards, now this is the one we teach a lot, how do you feel towards? And, you either are interested or, you're mad at it.
Mhm.
And so we learn how to help that part on blend. So
Mhm.
that same concept is what you want to be having with you if you're getting stuck. This is what I usually say in
Mhm.
supervision with someone. I'll say, if you got stuck, it's three answers.
Mhm.
Either it's a part in the client, and either a new part or the part itself that you've been working at. There's some nuance about that.
Mhm.
The client internal system is blocked by a part. So the self energy within the client's system may be blocked a little bit,
Mhm.
or the therapist might be pushing,
Mhm.
the protocol or an agenda. So it's like somebody's got a part.
Right.
And,
Right.
and then you just try to, okay, so that we went left instead of right. Let's explore those three possibilities.
Mhm.
So you just still stay in the, oh, what just happened? Oh, okay. So, and sometimes I'll do that. I'll talk it out loud with someone.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I don't say we didn't go left and you should have
Uh-huh.
gone left, but I'll say, oh, so something just happened. So check inside and see whether the part really knows you're there, right? So I begin that teasing out where might a part be that's blocking a kind of unfolding.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel that, and I'll say this, I feel that the protocols and the questions, that they're actually pretty good. I mean, I
Mhm.
give Dick a lot of credit
Yeah.
because they are aligned with what I see to be organic, what would
Mhm.
naturally occur with time. And
Mhm.
I use evidence for that by giving the example of meditators, where for 5,000 years, if you do a mindfulness practice with a sensation on your shoulder and
Mhm.
you're bringing kindness to it, you're not in an observer or a critic, but you're just sort of like, what is that, what is that, what is that, you're gentle with it and you stay, it will
Mhm.
go through what we would say is the IFS process, right?
Uh-huh.
It'll move or it shift, or you might get an image, or
Mhm.
it'll soften and just unburden spontaneously.
Mhm.
And that's what I learned through that wave work experience. If you just stay with the sensation, it will shift or tell a story.
Uh-huh.
And so you can trust that this process and the questions, they are designed to move gently in towards what is organically there. And
Mhm.
that's what Peter Levine's work is, like the somatic experience, say that, the sensation getting blocked. And if you just give it the right conditions and we just want it to move. And
Mhm.
that's what we're trying to do also in IFS. Just the questions are just designed. Sometimes I don't know whether they have this children's toy in Russia, but we have this children's toy over here my kids had. And it was like a chutes and ladders. The child would build this, slides for marbles essentially, and you put the marble at the top and you kind of just blow on it and it's going to go
Uh-huh.
down the chutes.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I feel like our questions are like that. We're
Yeah.
just lightly there trying to help the system really go into what organically does want to happen to heal. So it's trusting that the therapist has to trust that that actually is possible. How do we get our parts out of the way? How do we, help a client understand what parts might be blocking that? So there is actually a lot of skill to all of that. But
Right.
then when you step back, the big picture is the system does want to heal.
Mhm.
And we're just trying to create the right conditions so that that healing can happen.
Mhm. Yeah. I'm really resonating with what you are saying, like especially with this like toots and letters like
Yeah,
that kind
the,
of yeah.
slide.
Because to me it almost sometimes it feels like, it's like I'm thinking in terms of trains, like there are many different train tracks and the train can go off the track. But like once you kind of like in the beginning, kind of help it get on the track, it just naturally just rolls down, the rails. And you don't have to push it or like do
Yes,
anything.
yes, same idea. Yes, that's
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah, yeah. All right. Well, so there were some other questions that I wanted to ask you. I'm looking in my notes now. Um, so we talked about the beginning therapists. Oh yeah, yeah, that question,
What?
Okay, so so I often hear from therapists who are coming to the workshops, in Russia, the question about the clients, when they're trying to do any kind of IFS work with clients, even in the very beginning, just really to look at the system and look at the parts, right? Often clients respond with, fear, like I don't have parts, I don't have schizophrenia. Why are you saying to me, that like I have parts? There is nothing wrong with me like that. You know, um, Anything that you would suggest in terms how, you could approach fear like that?
Yeah. So sometimes, that does happen.
Mm-hmm.
I usually watch. You don't have to use the word part. So I'll drop the word part completely then.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll say, oh, okay, well, that's all. I always try to be very de-shaming, right? Normal. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense. But when you get a strong feeling, or if you're, when you're really thinking hard, like what happens in your head, or so I might just. That's what I mean. Like you can kind of tell if you're thinking really hard, or if you're really mad. If you get really frustrated about something, what happens for you? How do you know you're frustrated?
Mm-hmm.
And they might, well, I can, I feel it in my, I can feel it in my face, or I can feel it in my hands or something. I said, yeah, that's what I mean. That whatever that feeling is, that intensity, that's the kind of thing I mean. So you're having a strong feeling and you can kind of feel it. You feel that tension. So when I'm asking you that's what I mean. So I tried to just go in the back door a little bit about it. Sometimes I'll say, if I'm anticipating it, that might be that you're getting that a lot. It seems like you might even say, well, do you ever have the experience, like let's say you're trying to decide, do I want to go for a new job or not, or do I want to leave my job? So sometimes inside of yourself you're thinking, yeah, I think I'll leave, and then sometimes you're thinking, nah, I'm not going to leave, and you've got little lists on both sides. So that's what I mean. Like that's how would you describe that?
Yeah.
And
Great.
what words would you have? And then I would use whatever the client said for the two lists of why I want to leave the job and why I don't want to leave the job.
Yeah, so we're like really using their language.
Try to find their words for it and try to normalize it.
Yeah.
And use an example that everybody can relate to.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, because this example is trying to make a decision. We all can relate to that. We all make
And we
decisions.
all have different thoughts and feelings around both sides of that decision.
Yeah, right. Makes sense. Right. Well, Fran, is there anything else, that you would like maybe to talk about in terms of IFS? When you think about Russian audience, right? And IFS kind of like came to Russia and it's spreading through Russia. Anything that, else that you would like to say or share?
I did I want to say, yay, and thank you. And there's something about knowing you're out there feels hopeful to me, to some of my parts, and thrilling actually to know you guys are out there and learning this model and excited about it, and that just feels very hopeful and exciting to my part. So I'm just very happy to be here and know you're out there and learning and be on this journey with you. So it's just an honor and a thrill to share this time with you today.
That's great. That's great. Thank you so much. And, this may be a question that may put you a little bit on the spot. So if you don't want to answer it, that's perfectly fine and we can cut it out, but, would you be interested in coming to train in Russia? Like
I
bringing
would
the
love to come.
training? Yeah.
I would love to come.
Yeah.
I would love to come.
Great. Great. And this would be so wonderful, to have you
What
really
a
train.
special
Yeah.
experience that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Like, I really, really, really appreciate you agreeing. I was like jumping up and down when you said yes, when I asked you. So great to talk to you. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes. And lots of big love to all of you in Russia.
great. Thank you so much. I'm gonna pause now, stop rather.